Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Majority Podcast. This is episode 4, and this is going to be our review of the year. With me tonight is my co-hosts this time, Niall, Fraser.
Hello, nice to meet you all. I hope you're having a great evening, a great festive period. Yes, we've got such a good show lined up for you. I can't wait. So we've just got so much to discuss. We've got Zoomer of the Year, we've got the whole shebang, and with us is David
And,
Griffiths.
and also David is with us as well. And David, what are you going to be talking about today?
Well, we're going to have a little look back at some of the major events of this year, including, of course, the election itself, the Holyrood election.
Yes.
And we're going to be talking a bit more about the some of the fallout from that, and I'll be presenting my view of who I believe is the Zoomer of the Year.
Of course, we're always looking for your comments and your participation. So come back in a second and we'll get started. Well, good evening, everyone. And as we normally do, we usually start this podcast with a big thank you to our donors who made this possible. We did a crowdfund and that helped us buy the equipment and get everything ready. And we hope that you enjoy being with us. At the moment, we have over 40 people watching. Please do give us your comments in the chat and we will highlight the most interesting ones, might even discuss them. So without further ado, we're going to just go straight into the topics of the day. First one is going to be about from David.
Yes. Topic of the day for me would be the wholly unnecessary lockdown restrictions which have been placed on Scotland in the last couple of weeks. And we can see that there is no parity whatever across the various regions of the United Kingdom, and as much as everyone's doing their own thing, Scotland has the most absurdly restrictive measures in place to stop people enjoying themselves over the Christmas period, and it's becoming more and more ludicrous by the day. If any of you saw John Swinney attempting to explain it yesterday on BBC Breakfast, well, really, it was laughable. And let's not forget, these are people who are used to interviewing people about fluffy puppy dogs and stuff like this, not serious matters of the state. But even with these people, John just could not get his point across at all. And so, yeah, we have this ludicrous situation right now. It's Hogmanay. It's the biggest event in the Scottish social calendar tomorrow night. And we're being encouraged not to go out. And you had the utterly grotesque sight yesterday of Nicola Sturgeon reminding people that nightclubs are closed now until 17th of December, unless they choose to remain open without dancing. I mean, this is like it's like being governed by Oliver Cromwell. It's unbelievable. Oh man!
Well, I think it is. I mean, I think
hilarious.
most people are really upset about the difference in the restrictions between England and Scotland, and
Yes.
we're seeing a lot. We're seeing these kind of, ambiguous messages, or not ambiguous messages, but messages that don't have any force. Where, like this one here in the BBC, which they're urging Scots not to travel to England for Hogmanay. I mean, who in the right mind wants to put a restriction between Scots and a party? I mean, really, this is quite crazy. So, and especially for people in the border. Now, if I were living in the border regions, you could just go over to Carlisle or whatever. So, how on earth could that possibly be enforceable? It's just ridiculous.
Absolutely right.
I think Carlisle's going to be absolutely jumping this year, if I'm honest. It'll be the biggest year of Carlisle's calendar. Never before seen numbers, Scots heading south to enjoy themselves at the Bells.
I think you're right.
Such a sorry state of affairs that, the birthplace of Hogmanay and all Lang Syne's just been shut down on us. It's pitiful. And
pitiful.
People are right to be dismayed and sort of taken aback by the fact there's different restrictions across this disunited kingdom. You know what I mean?
Surely there's a case
really bad
for a single nationwide approach from the beginning to stop this type of political grandstanding happening.
Yep. That should have been brought into force straight away,
Yeah, agreed.
It was inevitable.
This was bound to happen, exactly. If you've got 4 different governments, if you like, making decisions. Crazy. But I mean, it's not only going to be Carlisle, it's going to be Newcastle, Manchester. All these towns will be thriving because of what's happened here, and the people from Scotland will be made very welcome there also. I've seen guys, let's not forget that there is also restriction on football in Scotland. Uniquely, no other country in Europe has decided to close down football early, but of course Scotland has. But only the top league, of course, not the rest of the leagues. So you've got the Farcical situation yesterday. I tweeted this. You've got a match in London, Brentford against who was it? Who was they playing? Was it Man City? Anyway, and then the Kenny, what's his name? Ali McCoist is co-commentating before flying back to Scotland, where he can't go and see a game in the top league. And this was a ground full of spectators, absolutely full of spectators in London. But we can't have a game in Livingston. I mean, what? It's insane, isn't it? Really, guys, it really is crazy.
Well,
and this is what happens.
I think the thing that we're most concerned about is that these restrictions are being made without any concern or any consideration of the science. And the science seems to be that while there are many cases of COVID, and I should say at this point that I was actually diagnosed with a lateral flow test not 2 hours ago with having COVID myself. You can see that I'm in my deathbed. Well, I've got a mild headache and
don't speak too soon, Mark.
So,
don't
well, I know. I mean,
soon.
it could happen, could get worse. So don't know. And of course, many people has got worse. But the experience seems to be in the Omicron variant certainly is that there are many cases very, very transmissible, but that hospital admissions and deaths are not going up at all. And that was the discussion that Boris Johnson and the English government was having, the UK government, I should say, was having. And they were basically saying, well, let's wait and see what happens with these hospitalizations first. Whereas in Scotland, what happened was they were just like, oh, we want to lock down stuff straight away without any consideration of the businesses.
It was a snap decision. It was very rash. It was a snap decision. Without any thought to the economic ramifications, although we've experienced the economic ramifications from last time. So we should have learned.
I've got a tweet here up. It's 6 weeks of Omicron in Scotland. We still don't have a breakdown of who's in hospital with Omicron. And Parliament needs that clarity. That's Alex Cole-Hamilton, leader of Lib Dems. And even today, we've been seeing Hamza Yousaf basically prevaricating on who's in hospital, what are they in for, what is the status, and it's just all to hide this political decision that they made to close down things without actually looking at the science beforehand.
Yeah, right. Quite right. Yeah, the Hamza interview today was just teeth-grindingly bad.
Yeah.
He was asked how many people have actually died of Omicron. Are there any? And he waffled about, we can't possibly release any personal data.
Managerial information, he says, something along the lines of that.
Exactly. It's a very
Anne Smith here asked me a question. Mark, have you had COVID jab? Yes, in fact, I've had the 2 main vaccinations, and I had a booster about 2 weeks ago, maybe. So even with the booster,
the plot
thickens.
The
booster,
plot thickens.
The test was positive today. So we'll see. I mean, surely, if this Omicron is, it spreads a lot, but doesn't actually have really serious effect, then surely that's the way to the herd immunity that they always talked about.
Absolutely right, yeah.
If you want to invite me to your Hogmanay party in England somewhere, then I'm ready to spread as much as you like.
Very good. Very good.
Likewise, by the way, likewise.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Very good. All right. So, we just have to live with the virus just as much as we have to live with the Scottish government for the moment.
Yes.
Let's move on.
Which is the virus?
Yes. Well, let's move on to next segment. Right. Where are we here? Okay. So we've got, there's an interesting article in the paper yesterday maybe, from Alan Tompkins. And David, I think you'd like to talk a little bit more about that.
Yes, indeed. As we know, there was an attempt made earlier this year to form a pro-UK, pro-unity, if you like, alliance, which all the three of us became very heavily involved with. And that the idea of that was to say, okay, let's stand as one united force against the nationalists, who, of course, are themselves a bizarre alliance of very disparate views, simply coming together to push the idea of Scottish independence. So it would have made sense, was the thinking, that we formed one group to confront them and to fight them. But no, that wasn't seen as being the right way to go at the time. And what happened? Would you believe, as a result, the SNP won handsomely the election. They didn't get a majority, we know, but they only failed by one. And now they've got their bag carriers, the Greens, who have got more seats. They've now got 8. So they've got an effective working majority. So now, belatedly, was it 7 months on from the election, we're seeing some of the pro-UK, the main opposition parties, belatedly saying, maybe a pro-UK, a pro-unity alliance would be a good idea. And Adam Tompkins wrote this thing, this article, I think it was today. I didn't agree with all of it, far from it. And one thing particularly he said was, we wouldn't want to have an alliance in a messy alliance for unity, like messing about on the list. So he's completely missed the point of what All for Unity, Alliance for Unity called for, which was for the main pro-UK parties to stand down their candidates in the constituencies, and it's the constituencies where the SNP, let's not forget, won 62 out of 73 seats. That was the whole point of All for Unity. As an add-on to that, we stood our own candidates in the list, yes. But the only reason Tompkins is saying, oh no, don't mess about with the list, is because the Conservatives won 26 of their 31 seats in the list. And so that's the main reason they didn't want an alliance on the second votes. They wanted to keep those second votes for themselves, as we saw in their interminable pleas to give both votes to the Conservatives, vote Tory 1 and 2, and all this nonsense, even in the full knowledge that wasn't what the election rules were designed for. So very, very annoying to see that you've got, well, it's annoying in 2 ways. One, that they're about 18 months late in recognising that a pro-UK alliance probably would have been a good idea. And secondly, they still can't even acknowledge the fact that All for Unity, Alliance for Unity, called for something far more comprehensive than just a few guys hoping to get elected via the list. So very annoying, and it's as if they're still not really seeing it. And so we know that the quality of the opposition parties in Scotland is dreadful. They are terrible. They're pitifully weak at confronting the Nats. The Nationalists can still get all of their legislation passed with ease. So the idea that this election was in some way a success just because the SNP didn't win an election, frankly, that's ludicrous. It wasn't a success.
Well, there were some successes in it. Certainly, Alliance for Unity did bring a big focus to tactical voting and focused minds. Now, some people might say, well, the Conservatives did offer to make it an alliance with Labour, but I think it was pretty much half-hearted. It was a something for show rather than something that really could have happened. The thing I'm concerned about in Tompkins' thing is not just that it's a day late and $1 short, is that the time has passed now for that. Yeah. I think 100%. That at that time, the time of the election, there was a chance where a particular kind of Labour leader could have bit the bullet, as it were, and said, "Okay, we're going to make an alliance and we're going to win." Because once they've won, you can make the rules. You can push whatever narrative you want after that. But they didn't do that, and so the chance was lost. So, and now to think that that's a possibility, I don't think so, because Labour, I think, are playing a longer game. Labour are really looking to pull back the SNP, the people who left Labour and went to the SNP. People that I would say were stolen from Labour by the SNP pretending to be nationalists. I mean, so. I read Tompkins' thing, and there's an interesting part in it where he says, do Labour go soft in the union to get SNP voters back, or hard on the hapless UK government to get Tory voters back? I'm like, it's like, well, there's another more obvious solution to this, which is Labour need to convince SNP voters that the SNP is not a socialist party. It's not a progressive party. It doesn't stand for for sharing. It's nationalism is divisive, and so on. And work on it seems ridiculous to say this, because you would think the Labour of all parties would be an ideologically driven party, and say this is what socialism is. It's about sharing, pooling resources across our nation. If some people, one region isn't doing as well, we balance that out between the regions. This is straightforward stuff, and instead we get this kind of and I think actually, to be honest, that Labour are beginning to do that, and I think it is a bit of a long game for them. So, but this misunderstanding of how that's going to work from this so-called Tory intellectual is really disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, he was considered also to be the leading intellectual in the Conservative Party in Scotland. He's so intellectual, he realised he was wasting his time and he stopped being an MSP and me. So yeah.
Well, I think they certainly need some new intellectuals in there. But maybe they'll catch up. So that's 18 months, as you said, for them to catch up with the idea of fighting up single candidates. Maybe in another 18 months they might get the idea that nationalism is the enemy, and we need to degrade nationalism first. Makes sure that people are like, what nationalism? I was never involved in that. And then people, after a while, it's a long process. It's going to be. After a while, they'll come back and they'll say, okay, of course, I'd never be a nationalist. We've always been Labour, or we've always been Tories, or whatever it is. Back to normal politics.
Absolutely right. I mean, that's what we've got to get to. I've said this before. We've got to get people feeling on a visceral level that nationalism is not the answer. It is in fact the enemy, and we're way short of that. We're nowhere near it right now, because people are happily spouting all this really disgraceful rhetoric. And I never thought I'd see Scotland embracing nationalism. I really didn't. This is a new thing to me. I really didn't think that would happen. But I mean, a lot of the points that are being mentioned here, Labour should hammer the SNP and core Labour values. Absolutely right. I could not agree more. I think you said much the same, Mark. So yeah, I mean, we've got to hope, and we just got to keep going. And yes, there was nothing new in what Tomkins said. Absolutely nothing new at all. So I still don't really know what the plan is, and this is my concern, and I've voiced this quite a few times. At the moment, you've got 72 is it out of 129 seats are SNP or Green in Holyrood. There is nothing to stop, although there's a fixed term Parliament Act in place, there's nothing to stop the SNP and Greens preparing legislation to say, okay, we'd like to cut this term short and stand on exactly the nationalist version of All for Unity's suggestion, which is one party standing in the constituencies and one party of the same bent standing on the list. And if they did that, they could simply wipe the floor with the opposition parties, because you know what would happen. Sarwar and Cole Hamilton and Ross would all be saying, vote for us. No, don't vote for them. And if another smaller party from the same side came to the fore, as All for Unity threatened to do, then we know that the Conservative and Labour Party would turn their aim on that party, because we know this happened in May, that the Conservatives in the last 2 weeks of the election campaign, instead of fighting the Nationalists, turned their ire on All for Unity. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous. And I don't think anything different would happen next time, guys. And I genuinely think that Sturgeon is planning to do this. Because why would
you're saying, sorry, that Sturgeon would work with the Greens to do that?
100% she would, yeah. Yeah, because I mean, they've got to work. I think if you look back in May, the SNP took 1.3 million constituency votes and won 62 seats. They also took over 1 million list votes and won 2 seats. They're not going to waste those million votes again. They know that they've gone as far as they can.
100%.
You can't get any more out of that. I don't think it's any coincidence that they've gone into what is effectively an official alliance with coalition. And I'm certain, if nothing else, to keep Alba out, they would unquestionably push.
Yeah, but surely the Electoral Commission have something to say about that if they're both basically in the government together.
Well,
they should be.
Let's be honest, the Greens are not Green at all. They're not even affiliated to the UK Green Party. They just call themselves the Scottish Greens. They're
Scottish Nationalist Greens.
Yes.
That's what they are, exactly. So, but I'm convinced that they do that exactly for the reason you've just said, Mark, because you can't have two parties getting all their votes to count in the Scottish election, and that's why they maintain this facade that they are really a different party from the.
Well, let's not forget that me and you, David, were pilloried for this exact idea. This exact idea of uniting the opposition parties into one strong, malleable force that could legitimately come up against the SNP. But it's strange now that
I'm concerned that there is some
Tompkins
call for Tompkins saying, "All right, well, we should form one party." That's a
Yes.
different matter entirely.
There needs to be a battle plan. There needs to be a battle plan going forward. Like you said, David, no one knows the plan. There is no plan.
I think forming a single party just leads to more separation, to be honest. So I'm very wary of that third party idea.
Unless,
all right, okay.
Unless there's buy-in from the major parties, it's just going to split the vote. I agree, Mark. Yeah.
Okay, so interesting points there, fellows. Let's move on to our next segment. Right. Okay, so next up, we've got Niall.
Yes, so we're talking about the Nicholas Sturgeon Marathon 8-hour committee hearing. So let me take you back in time, viewers. The date is March the 3rd, and it's 9 a.m, and it's in the Robert Burns room. And Nicholas Sturgeon sits before a committee examining her conduct over the Alex Salmond scandal. 8 hours later, and none of us were made any wiser about what happened. A committee hearing, Sturgeon was lambasted and ridiculed and mocked for a failure to recollect 50 times. No one, no two, no three or four, but 50 times, 50 separate incidents. And this alone should have brought Sturgeon down. This committee hearing alone should have ended Sturgeon's career, and then we could have moved on at this juncture. But no. She was squirming in her seat and sweating bullets. I mean, she even had Linda Fabiani, the deputy convener or the convener, sort of running defence on the entire affair. It was shocking to see. There was hundreds of videos that come out about it. Montages are saying, "I can't recall, don't remember." This is the best Scotland can do. Is this the best First Minister Scotland has to offer? I mean, I know your guys'
answer. Compare I think everyone who was following it deeply was comparing the testimony of Alex Salmond versus Nicholas Sturgeon.
Which was night and day. It
was night and day. And I think it needs to be remembered that was Alex Salmond was found innocent of all the charges. And these charges, I mean, one of the, I should say before you even get to talking about the charges, one of the very interesting things was that
something written about the charges, right? Yeah. So there was 9 women that made allegations against Salmond of over 13 charges. One included an SNP politician, a party worker, civil servant, and former civil servants in the government. So I mean, it seems to be on the outside looking in. It looks like a coordinated effort. I
think the one thing that really struck me was with the way the media reported it before the trial and before everything happened. It was Alex Salmond, and here are all the allegations, and here's everything. And then as soon as he was declared innocent of the charges, although there was one non-proven, then it was like radio silence, and it's actually extremely difficult to find out what the charges were and what the actual judgment was in each case and why the judgment happened. And if you look at it in detail, and this is one of the things I think about these recent books that have come out, and they're really, I think, really, seem to be very pro-Sturgeon. But what we really need to know is what actually happened in these cases.
Yes.
Some of these charges were like supposed sexual assault, but it's like they said it's like touching a woman's behind when she's got up the stairs, for example. I mean, it seems like excessive to make that
there's a lesser and more.
First of all, but even at that, those allegations were proven. The proven. He was proven innocent of those allegations, and there's been no pushback on anything like, well, okay, if these women weren't telling the truth, then why aren't they being charged with perjury? Why are their names still being anonymous, and so on? That's a whole thing about the Alex Salmond case, and I think the media has really failed in its responsibility to actually look at this situation. For all we care, I mean, it's great to see Alex Salmond and Sturgeon fighting, but ultimately public still needs to know what happened and what the
Yes.
truth was in this situation.
Absolutely.
And what we saw is Alex Salmond coming out and saying, this is what happened in a very forensic almost way. And then, Sturgeon coming out and saying, oh, I don't remember, I don't recall, I don't know what to do, and you're like, no, that's not really the way it's supposed to happen.
And the
No.
separate meetings with Murrell in their house, and Peter Murrell doesn't know about it. I mean,
well, we haven't seen Peter Murrell since then, so that probably speaks volumes
since he
itself.
had his meeting with a magpie, which he's just went absolutely off the radar.
Again, the media is not asking questions about that. Where is Peter Murrell?
Maybe that should be a
is he off in
idea for you.
Hawaii sunning himself? He's the head of a major. He's the CEO of the party. He should be, at least be seen at some point. And
not only that, Mark. I mean, he's Nicola Sturgeon's husband.
Yes.
Well, that is a good point.
Isn't it normal that when you win an election,
you'll be seen with your partner now?
Exactly. Margaret Thatcher did with Dennis, John and Norma Major, Tony and Cherie Blair, Gordon Brown and his wife. David Cameron and whatever her name is. You always saw the partner. When did you last see a photograph of Peter Murrell and Nicola Sturgeon in the same building, in the same room? It just doesn't happen.
Well, the Heavenly Malbec, one of our followers, basically says there, well, we could see what happened to Craig Murray when he did the jigsaw
identification
just
out of jail.
He's no longer just out of jail. It's quite funny. I think he's, it's like the SNP and nationalist establishment conspired basically to put them in jail. Both Alex Salmond and Craig Murray, and then Craig Murray's still like, oh yeah, but I still want an independent Scotland. It's like, can't you look in front of your face?
Self-flagellation. I know it's ridiculous. It's a glutton for punishment.
You voted for these people to come in, and I've always said this: you vote for nationalism, you get nationalism. You don't get whatever it is you think. I'm going to get socialism, in the future because I voted nationalism. Now, you get more nationalism. You get all the things that happen with nationalism. You get, centralization, and you get this kind of thing where the leader is making all the decisions, and these kind of conspiracies inevitably happen, or would possible conspiracies inevitably happen in this type of situation. Then you can't turn around and say, oh, but I'm still going to vote for it.
Ludicrous, isn't it? And it reminds me of the last general election, actually, the UK general election. I fell out with several people that night who were Scots who didn't want Boris Johnson to be Prime Minister. And I said, well, guys, who did you want to be Prime Minister, can I ask? Oh, well, I suppose Corbyn, but I just didn't want Johnson. I said, okay, so you voted Labour then? Oh, no, I voted SNP. So you voted SNP because you wanted a Labour government? I mean, what? It's ludicrous. It's like you say, they're voting nationalists, expecting to get some socialist nirvana. It's never going to happen. If you want nationalism, vote nationalism. If you don't, vote for somebody else. But there's no point in voting black and expecting to get white, because it just doesn't happen. It will never happen. Crazy.
No, and it's the same thing with Alex Salmond. At that time, Alex Salmond, I think there was some sympathy for him in the sense of, okay, you've been hard done to by Nicola Sturgeon's government. And then he goes and makes, a party, Alba, and says, oh, I'm going to work with Sturgeon. It's like, what?
The whole affair is just ridiculous, honestly. Imagine you're getting taken to court over accusations of your closest ally, one of your closest allies, and then we're going to need our help as well. So, vote SNP first, and Alba on the list.
And I just saw a message. I just saw a wee message on there from my friend Mark, who in Tokyo, watching all the way on the other side of the world.
Fabulous.
And nice to thank you for tuning in. I'm glad you're finding it interesting. And this is the point here. We're going worldwide.
Yes,
we're all around. This has been broadcast on Twitter, Facebook, and even on LinkedIn. It goes out in my personal LinkedIn account. So if you like to know more about Scottish politics, we do this podcast every Thursday at 7 p.m. and we're finding our way. And I think we're doing all right.
We're doing well. Yes,
I'm quite happy. We're all quite happy with the way it's going. So and we're gradually building up more and more followers. So yeah, it was a bit of a shocker. The Alex Salmon trial, probably one of the biggest events of
The year,
of
100%
this
one of the
year.
biggest events.
It
Yeah.
was unfortunate at the end that even though Nicola Sturgeon misled the Parliament, the inquiry said that, because of the way that didn't really have as much impact as it should have had. She was able to get out of it because of the guy, what was his name? The independent inquiry, the other inquiry, which basically said that she hadn't misled Parliament. And
Yeah.
it's just, just really, it felt like a whitewash.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next segment. Okay, this one is one of ours. One of the big things that we did as a majority this year was to do some campaigns. And the main campaign we did was ResignSturgeon, where we did two things. Well, no, we did more than two things, actually. We did a lot of things. But the main part was we took a billboard campaign out across Scotland with a very simple message, which is ResignSturgeon. And we also flew a banner across Glasgow and Glasgow and Edinburgh here, and this is the moment ResignSturgeon banner flown across Parliament by plane as billboards emerge across Glasgow, Edinburgh and Aberdeen in the sun. There it is, they're flying away, ResignSturgeon, and
in all its glory.
It was very successful.
In all its glory.
Yes, that was it. That is it
Wonderful.
there. And here's a little bit of some of the billboards that we did. Now, this was a crowdfunded campaign, and we were very, very proud to have many thousands of pounds donated for this campaign. So a big thank you to all of our donors who put forward it. It's not, we just organised it, really. You paid for it. We did ResignSturgeon. The plane flew over, and it's been quite good, because one of the things that, for a lot of people, have felt that no one was, that people weren't really fighting for them, and that was one of the reasons we started the majority, was to say, look, we're here, and there are other people like you, and we are together. We can actually do things. And this has Yvonne Keegan says here, and underneath he says, "Love the banner. It gave me hope back." And someone said that to me. They said they were wandering along and they were out walking their dog, and they looked up, and there it was, ResignSturgeon. They were like, "Oh, someone's actually doing something."
In a wee minor place
And-
as well. That's what this show is about as well, to give people hope that you're not alone. Sometimes it feels like you're living in an insane Scotland where everyone are SNP voters, but that's not the case. We are
Definitely
the
not.
majority.
Here.
Yeah, so I mean, again, I think one of the things that we'll be doing this coming year is that we've got local authority elections coming up in May. We've got a number of other campaigns as well. We have an ongoing campaign against the national newspaper, the publishers of that, and that's going to go up a level this year. And we'll be doing more, hopefully we'll do more billboard campaigns and other things, maybe not fly past, but maybe some other stuff, who knows, through the year. And some people say to us, well, it's not a, you go, oh, well, this doesn't, it's not going to change any minds, right? You're just preaching to the converted. And we're like, yeah, that's exactly who we're talking to. We're talking to the people who are our supporters, and we want to let them know that we're available to speak for them. And I think between us and the other people who are on the other groups, and the other people on Twitter, and the other activist groups on Facebook and social media, I think we're building a lot of momentum this past year, and I think we're really on the up, and I think that's been pretty good for all of us.
Definitely.
Right, so that was a wee bit of self-promotion, I guess. Thank you to Dale for saying good luck for
to be fair, the banners
for
were unbelievable, Mark. The design on these things are brilliant. The plane was like the pièce de résistance. It was
Definitely
unbelievable. Yeah, it was cherry on top of the cake.
Yeah.
Well, we're quite happy to do it. So, yeah, and as Heavenly Malbec says, for people who are not in social media, seeing posters is great. And that's one of the reasons we're doing meetups and trying to get out to see more, you might say, people who are not in social media.
Mm.
A lot of people, even the people in social media don't see all our messages, you know.
True.
So it's a constant process of trying to get out and get the word out and say we are the majority, you know. When we've had enough of being having the minority run the narrative over us all the time.
Yep.
You know, these it's not. These people aren't the majority, so why have they got so much power over it? And a lot of that power is they've built up over the years and that certain narratives, and our job is to break them down and to say no, nationalism isn't something that's noble. It's, you know, it's a greedy and divisive ideology. It has no place in modern Scotland. So everything we do, every donation that you bring to us, every time you retweet or every time you watch this podcast, or you tell people about what we're doing, everything helps us get stronger, and that's can only be good for us.
A great
Quite right.
comment just come in there. Richard Tallack, if you can bring that last one up. All under one banner, marchers gave the impression the Nats were the only ones in the ascendant. Now there seems to be less wind in their sails. How very well put, Richard. We've seen the dwindling of the independence marches. We've seen some really funny ones with, like, 40 people and a dog in Dundee. And it feels like the more people are out there protesting against Sturgeon now than for her. So you're right. The windy change is coming. People are starting to wake up. And you're right, Mark. It is to this divisive nationalism, this insidious sort of rot that's happening, rot in Scotland from the inside out.
Indeed.
Well said,
Sandra McGregor's made a really good point as well, or a good suggestion. Sit down and look at let's speak to people in group and educate people on how they need to vote. Absolutely right. And this is what All for Unity, or Alliance for Unity as it may be called, moving forward will do, is exactly that. All for Unity will not be a political entity in next year's council elections. That's known now. But what the group will want to do is to try to ensure that there is the pro-UK majority, which does exist, and the numbers in the election bear that out. More than half of the electorate voted for pro-UK parties than for nationalist parties in both constituency votes and list votes. That's an irrefutable fact.
The majority is a non-party group.
Absolutely.
We have many followers, and that's one of the reasons actually we call ourselves. We don't call ourselves unionists. We are anti-nationalists. We have people who from all parties, from Labour, Lib Dems, people who are from all walks of life, but they're all united in one thing: that they want the nationalists out and what we might call normal politics to resume. So let's just keep working, pushing forward, and see where we get to. Next up, it is Zoomer of the Year.
Yes.
Mama.
Well, you can see we spent a lot of money on that graphic. So
this is the fun part of the show. The fun part of the show, guys.
Right.
So
I'm going to let you guys get on with it because I'm just going to.
All right. Okay.
Field the user comment. So if you've got your comment for Zoomer of the Year, put it up, and I'll highlight it.
Zoomer of the Year. Okay. Fire in your comments. This is the person that's most upset you in terms of Scottish politics, or the person who's just been outstanding in their ineptitude or outstanding in their in other fields. We'll say that. So my Zoomer of the Year, and I think it goes without saying, is Humza Yousaf. So why do I say Humza? Well, this is a guy who seemingly can't do any right. He can't seem to find his feet anywhere. He's in the Justice Secretary. Can't he find his feet there? No, we get him moved to Health. Really can't he find his feet there? We've got ambulance waiting times that are the highest we've ever seen. There's people legitimately dying in Scotland waiting on ambulances. So this is a catastrophic situation. And we've still got this guy twiddling his thumbs. He's got legal disputes with nurseries. He's firing about corridors in Holyrood on a scooter. Right. So if you broke your ankle and went to the hospital, what do you think? What would they give you that, David? Would they give you a scooter like that?
I don't think so. Somehow.
I didn't think so. Right. So
God.
let's analyse this clip. Can we get it bigger, Mark, please? Right. So
Oh,
yeah,
if
we've put
possible,
it full size. Okay. let's try
right.
that.
This is as good as we're going to get. Right. So look, one. Right. Let's examine it. There's a guy running along beside him with his crutches. Right. So this guy's getting paid to run alongside. Our tax money's going towards this guy. Run alongside him, and he's clearly.
Well, it's important. I mean, what's so important that he has to go down this corridor? 20 miles an hour on a scooter.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is he
At
really
pace.
rushing to do
pace.
his some interesting work on his brief? I mean, he's absolutely useless. I mean, he has everything he touches is awful.
Yes.
There is nothing that is
Reverse
good
Midas
about
touch,
the thing.
yeah.
The thing that's quite interesting, I find out a little bit in Nicola Sturgeon's cabinet, is that these people, they all seem to talk for each other's brief all the time. You get Swinney talking about health,
Yep.
and then you've got Humza talking about other stuff, and Sturgeon talking for all of them. It's like, you've got something to talk about. Actually know what you're talking about and just deal with that.
Yep.
We don't need all this cross stuff going on. It's like you've just made it up. Oh yeah, I had an idea this morning. So even though I'm the Minister for Health, I think I'll just talk about transport or something.
Quite right.
What kind of thing is that?
Richard Tallock said something there that he was inspired into politics and due to his standard grade modern studies. I think that's probably the level he's still at.
Absolutely.
Is standard grade modern studies.
Well, I think it's a problem in all nationalist groupings. Basically, you're judged by your party loyalty rather than your competence.
Yes,
and this person has a lot of loyalty, but he doesn't have any competence whatsoever. Yep. So he's there, and if he was in the UK government, I mean, first of all, he probably wouldn't get in, and then he would be out.
Yeah, he'd be laughed away out the door.
I mean, just even today we had the thing where he wouldn't tell us the number of hospitalizations
whilst having locked down our whole country again.
Yeah,
and it should be equipped with that information.
It's just not acceptable.
Somebody should be phoning him every hour.
Couldn't agree more, gentlemen. Indeed. Yeah, he's simply not on top of his brief, guys. That's how simple it is. Appalling. And at this time, what possible excuses are for the health minister not to be on top of the COVID statistics? I mean, how disgraceful.
No, there is no excuse.
And I mean, again, we've got, even with that, you've got, why isn't he the one who's doing the COVID health briefings? Why is it always Nicola Sturgeon who's on there as well? It should be the person who's given that. Of course, it's a Nicola Sturgeon show, and she gets, gets the benefit. She got the benefit in PR from that throughout the COVID crisis. I don't think that's really working for her anymore.
He probably wanted to do the COVID briefings, but you can't outshine the master. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to outshine the master, who is Nicola, clearly.
That's right. So, okay, so I've got Humza there. David, who have you got?
Well, I'll give you an alternative, guys, because picking Humza is like shooting ducks in a barrel. It's just such an easy target. So I thought I'd give us another suggestion here. So just bear with me. I thought I'd maybe suggest the Deputy First Minister, John Swinney, that serial failure. Now, let's not forget, Mr. Swinney's year started with a vote of no confidence after he failed to publish key papers from the government's legal battle with Alex Salmond. And the committee, which was chaired by Linda Fabiani, said that it was not reassured that it had been given access to all the material which it had requested. Unhappily for the people of Scotland, the Greens, the loyal bag-carrying Greens, sided with Swinney and the vote was defeated. But ever since then, every time Swinney is interviewed, he has that look in his face of sheer terror that he just doesn't know what to say. And every time after he's interviewed, there is always a retraction or a correction or an apology from Sturgeon or somebody else, because he always gets it wrong. And just this month, Swinney said he came on to label the Scottish League Cup final at Hampden a super spreader event. And it had to be pointed out to him that there was actually a game at Ibrox the previous day where there had been more spectators than there were at Hampden. But poor old John obviously can only take in one event at a time in one weekend. So, I mean, his pitiful incompetence just knows no limits. as I said earlier yesterday, he was torn apart by fluffy, kindly BBC breakfast interviewers when he was asked, can you just justify the science? And of course he couldn't do so. So I would like to suggest, Mr. Swinney, during the election campaign, I tried very hard to persuade him to stand down after me because, you know, as I was pointing out to him, he's getting a bit old. He can go and join the bowling club. You know, you failed so long, John. It's time that you let yourself be a success at something. So I'd like to suggest Mr. Swinney. I don't think it'll win the day, but I thought I don't like to have him left out of the potential prizes.
You've done well in painting the image there for me, David. You know, I'm thinking deer in the headlights. And reporters asking you questions. Just you've got that shocked look. You know,
that's brilliant. Isn't it? It's that horrified look of oh God, what am I saying now?
God.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, there's I think again, it's a case of people who really seem very incompetent in their briefing. You know, they fail and then they're shuffled around to another department.
Yep.
Failing up one day.
Well, didn't you fail the last one? There was a story today about the woman who used to be
It's Angela Constance, no?
Yeah, that's the one, yes. And now she's in drugs and she's completely failed in the last thing. I mean, you really want competent people, but this is the part of the problem. They used to say in Scotland that you could put a rosette on a monkey, and you know, as long as you've voted Labour, right, or a Labour monkey, I don't know exactly, and a Labour rosette on a monkey and it would get in.
That's
and
right.
Now we've got the situation where we can put a yellow SNP rosette and the same thing will happen. And I wonder if the same thing will happen to the SNP in Scotland, where there was an article today that said they're taking the voters for granted, and you take voters for granted in different ways. And one of the ways is putting people who are incompetent in positions of power, and not having the people not having any feeling of real accountability or taking their responsibilities seriously. And certainly, you know, just it's almost like you, as I said earlier, you're loyal, so we'll just keep shuffling you around. You know, you know, there's a lot of money involved in this. These ministerial positions are. I think they're at 120,000 a year or something like that. Is that right?
It's around that figure.
96,000 a year. Plus
your MSP salary.
Yeah.
And then you get, if you're a minister, you get an extra 30 or 40 grand. And it's just, you know, can add to that. It's silly. I think the pay structure at Holyrood really needs to be sorted out. I think it's shambolic. We've got billions. I think Leo Kerr's put it the best way. We've got about the economy the size of Yorkshire and about 100 times more politicians.
There you go.
Yeah, it's definitely far too many politicians. I hear. Okay, so I am here as Earwood99 from YouTube saying Margaret Ferrier. That's quite something. You know, geez.
An ongoing feud.
She's still not been you know, being put in front of the police properly.
That's
another thing.
It's there's the what I really don't understand is the House of Commons Standards Committee is refusing to sit in judgment on Ms. Ferrier until her criminal trial takes place, and they don't need to do that. I actually had an exchange with Jacob Rees-Mogg. Don't mean to name drop, but I did. I said to him, "Is this the case? Do you have to wait for this?" He said, "No, we don't have to wait for it, but for some reason they're not even sitting on her." But I mean, she's clearly breached House of Commons standards in the same ways that Conservative MP who was found guilty of, you know, lobbying breaches. But you know, I mean, she's actually admitted what she did, so I don't really understand why they're waiting. But I wanted just to say one thing very quickly. We mentioned Angela Constance there, she's the drugs minister or whatever. You know that today the chair and vice chair of the Scottish Drug Death Task Force have both resigned because they said she was putting undue pressure on them to hurry up and get results. And it's like, and she was interviewed in BBC and said, "Well, isn't this going to be a real problem for your task force?" "Oh no, not at all." "Really? You've just lost your chair and your vice chair. Why is it? Surely it's going to make things worse." No, not at all.
I mean, this is one of Scotland's biggest problems as well. So it can't be handled with the light touch. So I quite like her haste at making people, you know, if they're not performing, just change them out and get the job finished. It's all about getting results in terms of the drug deaths. They need to go down. So I'm all about haste. But it's not a good sign if two people are resigning straight away. Not a good sign at all.
I think for the Zoomers, I didn't really think of anyone in particular, but the thing that I suppose that just comes to my mind straight off is, you know, apart from just the litany of, or endless parade of SNP scandals and do-nothings and incompetence. Just, I'm always drawn to the people on Twitter, the delusional followers who follow these people, and just the stuff that they come out with, that that Scotland is supporting England or stealing our water, or just the general complaints we have.
It's our water.
Yeah, all this type of stuff. And even had just the other day an MSP saying, "Oh, it's our gas, and they're stealing our gas and stuff." And you're just like, "Come on, give it a rest."
Absolutely.
Don't stop being such a zoomer.
Yep.
People don't want to hear this, actually. I mean, you should be adult enough not to say that kind of stuff to people. That's what I kind of think. It's insulting to the intelligence. And would you really want followers like that who would believe that? That's what I think as well. It's, I want followers who question stuff and challenge you and all this type of things. You don't want them to be like, "Oh yeah, mindless. We'll do everything you like." And if you say rubbish, then we'll just accept it. That's no way to run a party, run a country, or run any type of organization.
Indeed.
So I'm hoping you guys will disagree with me. Keep disagreeing with me as we go forward.
Exactly. Absolutely right.
But not about the important stuff.
Quite
right. So I think we've had a good chat tonight. My vote's with Humza, I suppose. Ultimately.
Well done. Yep. I'm happy.
I think that's it.
Happy to accept defeat there. Yes.
To be fair, that was a layup, David. An absolute layup. And John Swinney's a credible second, though.
I think so.
Very credible second.
And I'm confident he can win Zoomer of the Year next year. I'm very confident in John's ability to do that.
I mean, let's hope he's not around. We do have Zoomer of the Week, so that's
in politics.
Not an issue.
Exactly. In politics.
Right, so I'd like to wrap up by saying a big thank you to our viewers for watching tonight. It's great to have you with us. Lots of comments. We will be doing another podcast, of course, next Thursday, and that one will be about what's coming up, our ideas, some kind of thoughts we'll have for what might be coming up in the coming year. But again, a big thank you to our donors. Thank you to everyone who has helped us get this far, and we hope that you have a great new year and a very pleasant 2022. That's the first time I said that.
Let's right. Everyone have a great new year, a fantastic new year. Much love to everyone that's watching. We can't thank you enough. It's your interaction that keeps us going. It keeps us alive and breathing and kicking. But happy new year. Let's put this year to bed. Honestly, it really needs to be put to bed.
Well said,
guys. So thank you to.
Just to say thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me on tonight, Mark and Niall. It was an absolute pleasure to be on this podcast, and look forward to being on here with better quality equipment next year. So.
It's fine. It's doing good. I think we're just, it's just a gradual improvement. Every day we do things better. I think this is actually having the three of us on at once is quite a good format. So we'll maybe do that.
So I'm available anytime. It's great for the interaction as well. Everybody, many thanks for all the kind words and deeds and thoughts. So thanks, everyone. All the very best for 2022. And that's me.
Okay, so a big thank you to everyone, and we will see you next week.
Cheers, guys.
Bye now.
Bye, guys.
Oh, got to get to the thing.